Yes, here we go. Good evening, everybody. You're very welcome along to tonight's Between the Lines stream. I am, of course, your host, Craig, and I'm joined on this stream tonight by Cash. I hope to God this is going live because it's not popped up. There we are. We are live, definitely. Cash, how the hell are you?
I'm great, I'm good. Obviously, just finished watching Liverpool scrape out on an easy 3-2 win in the end. But overall, I'm pretty happy. I'm in a good mood. So yeah, I'm good.
Life's always good, isn't it, when the sun's shining and the birds are chirping and we get a glorious summer in the UK and Ireland?
Well, you know what? Like, today is probably the first day where it's like the sun's not been splitting the trees, and I woke up this morning and thought, what is this? Why is it not 24 degrees at 8 a.m.? But that being said, it was still really, really warm, and I don't remember the last time it rained. So it's, for me, I'm not really in the camp of people who whinge about warm weather. Just enjoy it because it will not last forever.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in that camp. Couple of people in the chat already. Good evening, Louis, Hassan and Sean. Lovely to have you guys along as always. Cash, look, we're going to let a few more people come into the chat before we get stuck into the topic that, look, everyone's going... And it's in there. Phil straight in already with it. Everyone's going to want to talk about KARIUS, but I feel like we need to wait for a few more people to join the chat. Otherwise, we're going to end up repeating ourselves. So I was asking you before we came on about the third kit, the new jersey, and what you thought of it. So share your thoughts on that with the guys, please.
I really, really like it. I think for me, as a ginger, I'm always looking for colours to complement my palette. So I think it's purely based on the fact that it's something I could wear. I really, really like it. I especially like the thick sort of the bold grey down each of the sleeves. I think that's a really, really nice touch, and it's a really nice shade of grey. And then obviously you've got the throwback. I don't remember the year of the kit, but I know it's one of your favourites, Craig. But the what year is it? That kit that you showed
89.
me? 89. Yeah, the 89. Yeah, so the 89 kit. It's a throwback to that, and I think I don't know. It pays homage to a previous kit, but at the same time, it's quite like edgy and newfangled. So yeah, I really like it.
I see a couple of people in the chat are saying Cash is substituting in for Connor because people were thinking last night that Connor kept popping off every 10 minutes for a wank. That was the narrative between last night's stream.
Well, guys, 10 minutes haven't passed yet. See if I disappear in about 8 minutes.
Then there was also a couple of people in the chat who thought I was killing Connor, or I had killed Connor, because he went quiet for a while, so they thought that I was after offing him.
So, like in South Park, the phrase is you killed Kenny, but like our phrase could be like, you killed Connor, you bastard.
Exactly. Actually, I do want to point out to the guys in the chat as well, lots of different people in on Twitter, lots of people in on YouTube. We're streaming across various platforms tonight for the first time, guys, so welcome if it's your first time. Cash, you know what this Diet Chav thing is by now. We've made you aware of what Diet Chav is, haven't we?
Yeah, you have, yeah. I mean, I was a fan of it in its previous form, but I think since finding out that it's Diet Chav, my love of it has gone to new levels. I've got a can right beside me now, and I'm not going to lie, having sort of victorious sips from it every few minutes has really set me up nicely for this chat. So, yeah, I'm aware of the dynasty that we're building under the Diet Chav label.
Well, you see, I went on, I'm not joking, people may think I'm joking, but when I get these products, I will put them on screen. I went onto our Redbubble account today and I ordered a couple of Diet Chav mugs and a Diet Chav t-shirt. Just because I feel like if I'm going to preach, I have to wear the stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to rep the merch, otherwise, how are the disciples going to do? How are the disciples going to do it? Once they see you do it, Craig, they'll follow.
Sorry, I'm trying to read a chat here. Sorry,
that's all right.
Just
want to say hello to everybody in the chat.
Somebody was just saying to me there that they know I drink a couple of bottles of water a day and stuff, but I drink 5 or so cans of Diet Chav a day, which of course I do, and they're saying that may well weaken my bones. Look, I'm fully aware, guys, of the negative impact of soft drinks in general, whether they're diet or not, on your health. But look, it's my only vice. I don't drink, I don't smoke. I enjoy the occasional can. I say occasional, Cash. I'm lying through my fucking teeth. There's 2 of them sitting here in front of me now as I speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's my vice as well. Like, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you. I'm not going to sit here, and tell you that you shouldn't do it. I mean, it's a hard one. It's very addictive. It's got aspartame in it, and it makes it very, very addictive. But like for me, 5 cans. The listeners might not like this, but for me, 5 cans is a good day.
Gosh, I love you more and more with each stream. Do you know that each time we talk more and more, 5 cans it's the minimum. I'm saying to the guys, there's at least 70 to 90 cans maybe in my kitchen at any one time. But look, we're not here to talk about Diet Chav, guys. We're here to talk about Liverpool Football Club. Somebody there says switch to red wine, mate, full of antioxidants. I do enjoy a glass of red wine very occasionally, but look, you guys want to talk about Loris Karius, so get your questions in the chat. Me and Cash will of course address them. And Cash, look, there's no denying the fact that what happened tonight is only going to add to the pressure that's on that young man's shoulders already.
Yeah, I don't really know what you sort of say about it, in the sense that I think you've got to separate it into two things. You've got to separate it into the actual mistake, and then you've got to like separate that, if you can, from the Twitter furore that surrounds the mistake, because I think people's reaction to it as a combined thing just makes it blow up. But also, what I would say, and not as to not offend anyone, I do understand people's stance in terms of Karius, because it is just such a frustrating thing that we couldn't have, we couldn't complete the second pre-season game against, until last year, Tranmere were non-league opposition, so we have had 2 non-league opposition games and we couldn't complete both without a gaffe from our supposed number 1 goalkeeper, who, we've been told to believe that has had the summer to recover and has come back stronger and less fallible and all those things. So for me, it's just tedious, because I was watching the game and I was writing notes, particularly on the first half, because I thought we were a lot more dynamic, and I was analysing that half more than the second. But then as soon as the Karius mistake happens, I may as well just shred all those notes, because the rest of the game just dissolves into irrelevance, because it all becomes about Karius and his shortcomings and the club's shortcomings by failing to sign a replacement. And for me, it's just a tedious narrative that I've heard so many times.
I apologise for going slightly off topic a little bit here. There's a couple of questions pertaining to you, Cash, going through the chat. So somebody, I think Anne, said you sound like an adopted Scouser like himself, so that's always good to hear. A couple of people are asking, is Cash a lady? And I suppose the name doesn't give it away. Your voice should, of course, but the name doesn't really give it away. So are you a lady, Cash?
Depends on how many gins I have. No, I'm kidding. Yes, I am anatomically female, for people asking. I suppose a lady is a relative term. I don't know. I am a woman, yes. Hear me roar. But Cash is a very gender kind of neutral name, isn't it? But short for Cashlin, for anybody that's interested.
Sean, straight away. Sean knows you're lesbian. Straight away, Sean. She's lesbian. Straight in there. There's no way he got that from your voice, by the way.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like you can tell that I like plaid shirts just from listening to me talk. No, to be honest, thank you, Sean. You're very perceptive. And
he
hopefully
may well follow you on Twitter, to be fair.
To be fair, and I tweet quite a lot about LGBT rights and various other things. Yeah, I am. Well, yes, that's it. I am a gay woman. Fantastic. Good for me. I'm happy about it.
Just to get back to the Karius situation, look,
yeah.
I've made no secret of the fact that I don't think we should be starting next season with Karius in goal. And I've also been quite frank about saying, if that situation does arise and Jurgen Klopp puts his faith in Karius, I will of course back the manager, but that doesn't mean I think he's right. And I think he's very, very wrong if he goes into next season with Loris Karius as a number 1. I do want him at the club. I think Liverpool is probably the place where he should be rehabilitated to an extent after what happened. I feel he needs that support, and the club deserve to show him that support. But I don't think, for me, that support extends to making him the number 1 going into the new season.
No, at a certain point, I think it becomes, and I think we're at that point, for emphasis, I think at a certain point it becomes negligent and criminally negligent to continue with a player who, forget about his ability and his perceived ability and all the rest, forget about those things. He just clearly is so mentally fragile still. I mean, I've obviously seen the mistake, but it's so much the mistake, but his reaction after the mistake, head down, head shaking, just a man who knows that any goodwill that's been reaccrued over the summer has just dissolved again, and he has to start from scratch. And I think that repeated process, and it will be a repeated process, I think it's just going to take its toll on the player. And to put him in a team as a number 1 where you're going to be playing 50 odd games this season, hopefully, it's not fair on the fans, it's not fair on the player, and it's not fair for the club to do that when there are the resources to do otherwise. So for me, we're kind of at the stage where now it's more than just an issue. It's an unequivocal elephant in the room, and it dominates everything, unfortunately.
Going into the chat to get a few comments, Anne says, just look at what City did with Bravo when they realised he wasn't good enough. We don't do this, it'll cost us in the long run. Sparky says Cash is so right in her comments. And you know what, Cash, it's tough for us to sit here and criticise one of our own, because look, let's be honest about it. Loris Karius is a Liverpool football player. He is one of our own. But as much goodwill as he did get, I suppose, after the Champions League final, and people were trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, we seen what happened in his warm-up the other day. We seen how people reacted to that. So when the situation like tonight happened, it was always going to be pretty obvious what the reaction was going to be from the fan base.
Well, yeah, exactly. I just think it's difficult, because Liverpool Football Club, our fans, I think more, I mean, maybe I'm biased, I mean, I'm obviously biased, but I think more so than other groups of fans, we really do forgive, we really do believe in, you know, absolution and second chances and redemption. And we, in fact, as I think Liverpool fans are quite romantic inherently, and we want that story. We love a good comeback, like Lucas, for example, who started really poorly at the club, ended up being a fan favourite. That's a key example. We love a comeback story, but at a certain point, you just think, is the comeback, is it possible? Have the mistakes been too big, too frequent, and just too damaging? I think that those have to be the questions. And if you're part of the club, you've got to really assess critically. Forget about the emotion. As a club, if they're running it as a business, which they are, you've got to look at it critically and logically and say, is this player detrimental to our aspirations? And the answer, unfortunately, for Karius is yes. And, you know, forgetting about all of that, if you just think about the lad, it's just, the situation just feels really toxic. It's like a toxic relationship that neither party want to end. It's like they feel like, oh, it could be better if they just do X, Y, or Z, when really it's just not right. And for me, I agree with you, Craig. I think the club do owe him the space to rehabilitate, but it should be with a view to moving him on eventually.
See, a couple of people in the chat were saying that they were at the game tonight, and I'd love you guys to write in the chat and let us know what the reaction was inside the stadium. Now, we are working with a new chat streaming session tonight, so the comments are going a lot quicker. They're coming in from various sites, so if we don't get through your comments tonight, I do apologise. It's a new system, I'm trying to get used to it, but I promise you I can, or I will try and get through as many as I can. But I would love to know, Cash, what it was like inside the stadium when the arrow went in, because he got a lovely reception at Chester the other day when he ran out.
Yeah, I mean, I say I've got a couple of mates over at Tranmere who are Tranmere fans, and we've got a WhatsApp group, and they messaged, well, they actually, one of them messaged something to the effect of, you know, the usual sort of jousting, and then another, who I have since blocked, message making a dig at Karius, saying, oh, he's still concussed, despite the fact that you can lament the mistake, but, you know, don't make light of concussion. It's a serious condition. But what they said was that it wasn't really overly reacted to. It was just very much like, well, this is a friendly, but you could see, it's hard because you could sort of see almost that there wasn't really that much shock or surprise. And I think it's gone viral now, but one of the players, Ben Tollett, that plays for Tranmere, who is allegedly a Liverpool fan, by the way, and his Twitter does verify that he's a Liverpool fan, he just says to Karius afterwards, you're fucking shit. And that kind of like encapsulates probably what the reaction was. But as I say, I wasn't there. So if anybody in the comments was there and wants to give me more detailed feedback as to how it was, like, please feel free.
Sean says it was good fun, got a good reception after the mistake, they laughed and his head was gone. And that, I mean, look, we are fans, we do want to support players, but we're not idiots. And one thing that annoys me about, I suppose I jumped onto Twitter, Cash, immediately after what happened, and I put into our WhatsApp group that I'm not looking forward to reading through the comments on Twitter. So I went on, and on Twitter being Twitter at times, you do get the vitriol, you do get the anger, you do get the frustration. But what really pisses me off in these situations is people thinking that Jurgen Klopp is a fucking idiot and that he's not aware of any of the situations that are going on around the club. One guy seemed to think that the only reason we signed a centre-back was because the club's fans turned on Jurgen Klopp, and that pressurised them into buying a centre-back. I had to point out to him that, no, we bought that centre-back when Klopp could actually get the centre-back that he wanted, and he put 75 million quid down, boom, it was done.
I mean, I can't really get on board with, you know, fans like that, and I use the term lightly. It's, you know, I know we all want to believe that we're in the know and that we know all the inner sort of workings of the club, but the fact of the matter is we don't. And, you know, for me, Klopp is so strong and so single-minded in his objectives that there's absolutely no way that he would buy a player purely to pacify the fan base or the hierarchy or whoever. He's buying him because he sees him as an intrinsic piece of the puzzle. The frustration lies in the fact that a good top-class goalkeeper is clearly another key intrinsic piece of the puzzle that seemingly he refuses to buy. So I think that's where the frustration comes. But as for the argument that Klopp fell out with such and such and therefore he bought a centre-back, it's ludicrous. And I do think fans are just... Everyone wants the best for the football club, but not everybody expresses it in the best way. And that is the problem. That only is going to get worse the more the social media sort of becomes central to all of our lives.
I think Johnny wants to have a chat about Kylian Mbappe, and trust me, mate, I will be moving on to him a little bit later on, because I was only preaching to Connor about Kylian Mbappe before I started the stream. Look, I fully believe we're going to see a goalkeeper come in. Let's break this down, Cash. Simon Mignolet wants out of Liverpool Football Club. I think that's fairly obvious.
Yeah, definitely.
A decision's going to have to be made on Danny Ward, and it's looking like Klopp doesn't rate Danny Ward that highly, if we're being honest, because he didn't give him any opportunities last year.
Yeah, agreed.
So if we're to believe that one, possibly both of those goalkeepers are going to move out of Liverpool Football Club, no matter what happens with KARIUS, we're going to have to add another goalkeeper. So the situation is just going to be whether we add a goalkeeper that we feel is a marked improvement on Loris Karius, a goalkeeper that might come in around the same level as Loris Karius, or somebody who may come in to be his understudy. Until that situation is resolved, I think it's unfair for us to be critical of anybody, let alone the manager.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think I'm loath to criticise, but what I would say is that I am frustrated. That is definitely there's a difference in that. There's a difference in being frustrated, and there's a difference in condemning the manager. I'm not one that will ever condemn Jurgen Klopp. I think he's one of the best things to happen to Liverpool Football Club in years, certainly in my lifetime, in terms of management. What I would say is that, as you said, Craig, as you correctly outlined, the situation as it stands it's very precarious. I made this point the other day on Twitter that we need to sign someone purely for bodies, as opposed to saying we definitely need a replacement for Karius. But if the keeper we sign could satisfy the criteria of both being an extra person that we so desperately need and being someone that is above the level of Karius, or at least is of a similar level but doesn't have the reputation and the sort of the damage done to it that Karius does, then I think the fans will be happy. I think the issue and the frustration lies in the fact that there's no obvious candidate. Like, Van Dijk was the most obvious centre-back we were going to go for. It was clear from day dot. He wanted him. Only him was going to wait for him. But there's no obvious candidate. Yes, we've been linked with Alisson. Yes, we've been linked with All Black. But realistically, there's no one that I've seen us say, this is who we want. We want you, only you, and when we get you, it'll be great. There's a lot of ambiguity surrounding it, if you get my meaning.
Cash, a couple of people in the chat are saying your audio is very loud. Can you distance the mic a little bit, maybe push it back?
Yeah, sorry. I pushed it back now. Is that okay?
It's not me. You're the same level for me. It's just the people in the chat.
Sorry, guys.
Cool. Right, so I think we should push on from the goalkeeper situation, because no doubt in the chat later on as the stream developed, we're going to get back into that more and more. And I know, like, these streams are often 2.5 hours long, so you probably won't be in for the entire stream. But I do want to have a little chat about Mr. Mbappe, because for me, Cash, he has been one of the highlights of this World Cup. And it's so refreshing to see somebody with his pace, talent and trickery just run at defenders with the ball. I love that, because they absolutely shit themselves.
Well, that's interesting, because Deschamps, the reputation Didier Deschamps has, and it's interesting because I think even if France win the World Cup, he still won't be universally liked. But the reputation that Deschamps has is that he's very defensively minded, defence first, attack as a secondary thing. But with Kylian Mbappe, I think there's just a general recognition that you are just that good, son. Just run amok, be free, be 19 and be fearless. And I think as a result of that, France are getting the best of him. Tonight, he didn't score tonight, but he was just an absolute live wire throughout. Vertonghen and Alderweireld will be having nightmares, for a long time about the idea of him scampering away from them, because he was just streets ahead of them in terms of speed. And he is just a joy. It's a shame that he plays for those mercenary-driven, FFP-avoiding beasts over in Paris, but he is a joy. He's a wonderful player.
I can't see who is going to challenge him for the Ballon d'Or. I mean, obviously Messi and Ronaldo have a few years left, but when he develops, when he hits 22, 23 years of age, he will probably move from PSG, if we're being honest as well. You can see him maybe moving to a Real Madrid or somebody like that, unfortunately, because obviously we'd love him in the Premier League, but I really cannot see anybody of his quality coming through, and there's some tremendous footballers in the world right now. But the pace, raw ability and fear that this guy just puts into people, it's immense, the absolute backing he gives himself. What is he, 19 years of age? It's tremendous to watch, and it's so refreshing to see, because I'm fed up of people who are afraid to run at defenders or can't take a tackle. He jumps tackles so well. They tried to take him down on at least 3 occasions tonight, and he rode the challenges a la a very young Lionel Messi.
He is. He's absolutely almost uncatchable in a sense. But I actually read a couple of weeks ago a really good expose into his grounding and his football breeding and education, and his father was a manager or a scout for a team in the suburbs of Paris, where he started off. And long story short, at age 5, 6, 7, Kylian Mbappe was sitting in the changing room with the team, listening to team talks, and it's clear that football has been a part of his life and his family's life from such a formative age that although he's 19, he's probably developing at the rate, he's probably developed to the rate of a 22, 23-year-old, because he's had such constant sort of footballing education from such a young age. But it was interesting, obviously, in terms of what you said about him not being challenged for the Ballon d'Or. I totally agree with that. I think once Messi and Ronaldo either are no longer good enough to get it, or they just stop awarding it to them out of sentiment, I think that'll probably come first. I think, you've got Mbappe, and really who else do you have? You've got obviously some wonderful players like Asensio at Barcelona or at Real Madrid is a wonderful player. You've got, I'm trying to think of who else would really sort of be up there. Ousmane Dembele is a very good player, but again is a little bit older. Those are not players that are going to challenge for the Ballon d'Or really to the same level. So he's almost out on his own, and he's got his opportunity to create a single legacy as opposed to having to share it with someone else like Ronaldo and Messi do.
Speaking of Ronaldo, Johnny wants to have a little chat about Ronaldo being confirmed his move to Juventus for, I think it was £105 million cash, if I remember correctly. Now that's mad to me, because Real Madrid are turning a profit from a transfer point of view. They're turning a profit on what they paid for Cristiano Ronaldo all those years ago. And look, they certainly have paid him a shit ton of wages over those years. I think he's going to be on something like 600 grand a week at Juventus. But Dave let slip earlier on in the WhatsApp group. Well, I say let slip, he made it blatantly obvious that he thinks Fiat have something to do with this deal.
You know what? It literally wouldn't surprise me at all. I feel like it's the sort of underbelly shit that goes on probably a lot more than we realise behind the scenes. I think for me, the player clearly wanted out of Spain. Various issues with both the Real Madrid hierarchy and the tax authorities in Spain, it was almost like a yearly sort of re-emergence of attention. So I think he definitely wanted out, and the club were happy to let him go. Now, if you're looking at Juventus from a commercial perspective, how have they financed that deal? Yes, they are an incredibly wealthy club, but that's big money, not accounting for wages for someone, in the twilight of their career, whether he wants to believe it or not. So I don't know, for me it does feel a bit fishy, but again, we've all seen how easy FFP is to get around. So I reckon if there is something dodgy going on behind the scenes, it's not going to be hard for the clubs to avoid being held to account for it.
I seen somebody in the chat asked, I thought the subject of tonight's show was about KARIUS, and it is, guys, and we will get back to it. But whilst I have Cash on, it's not very often I get Cash. She's a very busy lady, so when I get her on, I like to talk about a multitude of subjects with you, Cash, and it's been quite busy during this transfer window. Today, particularly, I mean, we've seen not just the Ronaldo deal, but we've seen Manchester City go and sign Riyad Mahrez for 60 million quid, which I was surprised to hear that's the record transfer.
Oh, I didn't realise that. I knew they'd signed him, but I didn't know it was a record transfer. I don't know how I feel about that, because I feel like he's not going to dislodge Sterling or Sané, at least not immediately. And that's a weird thing to say about a record signing, who you would expect to come in and be immediately fantastic and be a central part of the team. Part of the signing of him for me just feels like Man City being like, well, we can sign you, so we will. But, that's not to discount the fact that he is an excellent footballer. And will probably be really, really good for them. But, if I was to say whose business am I happier with so far, I'd say Liverpool's. Man City, haven't signed. Have they signed anyone else? I don't think they have signed anyone else because Jorginho hasn't come yet. If he's going to come, so
it looks like he could be off to Chelsea if you're to believe the rumours that are flying around.
Ridiculous. I think that would be a bad move for him in terms of his career. He's an excellent player, but each to their own. For me, it's always detrimental seeing really good players come into the Premier League, regardless of obviously where they go. But as for Mahrez, he's not a signing that I'm like overly threatened by. I just feel like, yeah, he's a great player. He may well play for City. He may well be good for City, but I don't know. He doesn't scare me.
Another subject that I want to get your thoughts on while I have you on the stream, and I've spoken to you on podcasts about this guy on numerous occasions, but look, we can't have a stream, have you on and not talk about Nabil Fekir. What do you think is actually going on with this situation? We've seen Johnny Cuntylocks, aka Mr. Owlas, talking about the situation till he's blue in the face. Very reminiscent of Ralf Rangnick last year with Leipzig. He seems to want to keep the subject in the news. I think he was praying actually that Nabil Fekir went out to Russia and tore it up with France in the World Cup, and he hasn't done that as of yet. And with France now making it all the way to the final, he probably will get very, very limited time in total in this World Cup.
I mean, from a potential, Liverpool player perspective, that's great for us. It's kind of like the Bobby Firmino scenario where, both players, if he comes, he won't have played very much and therefore, will probably not be super fatigued. But I think what's interesting is, from a French perspective, Aulas is probably going to leave. I don't know. He's probably going to egg Didier Deschamps' house for not playing him consistently because he is all about the finance. He's all about making the player the most sellable asset for the club that he can be. And if he's getting splinters in his ass on the France bench, he's not going to increase in value. Like Fekir's value has not increased over the course of this tournament. All that has happened is that we know how badly Liverpool want him. But his value, in terms of what he'd be worth, hasn't changed. It hasn't gone up. It hasn't gone down. So I think that's good from a Liverpool perspective. But I think, in terms of what's going on, I think the simple answer is nothing until the World Cup's over. I wrote an article about this for a website that I write for, and
go on, you can mention them. We like the guys.
Okay, so I write for Rousing the Cop, and if the listeners, like reading a lot of good Liverpool content, you can follow them. They're decent guys. But I wrote an article about this, and I said, effectively, the player wants to remain professional while he's got international commitments. You have to respect that. Whatever has happened in terms of the deal collapsing, we're probably never going to know the full details because the club won't clarify the position, which in turn makes me believe, because they won't clarify the position, it probably hasn't been clarified. It's probably still up in the air for all parties. But the only way that we're going to know with certainty is allow the World Cup to finish and just see where we go from there. But undoubtedly, Aulas said we can rely upon our captain for the 2018-19 season. That's a load of shite. He's going to be sold. And it'll be, I would say, to us. But it's going to be protracted, unfortunately, because, as you pointed out, their president is a notorious fucking crank.
If we were to say that this was a game of poker or a game of bluff so far in this window between Liverpool and Lyon, I would have to say Liverpool certainly have the upper hand at this point.
Well, I think I'd agree with that. I think the difference is that, Liverpool as a football club are always relevant. We're always relevant in, the news. We're always relevant as a global brand, etc. and so on. Whereas every year, Lyon, lose their best players, and that's their window of opportunity to make themselves relevant in the moment. So I think he really enjoys that. He really enjoys that window to really ham up the club, ham up himself, puff out his chest and be like, I am Lyon, hear me roar, and sort of assert himself. Whereas we don't need to do that because we're Liverpool and we don't need to. So I think that's probably the difference, and therefore we can sit back and be coy and not really say too much, and just say what needs to be said when the business is done. I think that's the classy way to go about it. And luckily, since Klopp has come in, albeit with a few mistakes, we have largely been classy in the way we've gone about things.
A couple of people in the chat, I'm reading through the different replies, and some people are saying, oh, this deal's done. Other people in the chat are saying the deal is dead. What do you think? Hand on heart, which way do you think it's going?
I think the deal will be done. I think the deal will be done. I just think it's so many things in life come down to good timing, and I think this is purely a timing issue. I think there will come a point where where the club, Lyon, are ready to deal. You don't know what's going to happen. Okay, the World Cup's going to finish. Fekir might not play. He might play. He might come back frustrated because he hasn't played. He might refuse to train with Lyon. He might throw his toys out the pram. He might say he won't play for the club. You don't know all the inner wranglings that are going to happen in the interim, but undoubtedly the player wants to go, and we all know the precedent with keeping players against their will. It very rarely works out well for the club, and let's be honest, an unhappy Nabil Fekir is not going to be as much of a coveted asset as he is now. So if Lyon are sensible, they'll do the deal, but they're going to do it, unfortunately, in the most annoying and sort of long drawn out terms as possible.
Another interesting deal I seen got through today was Torreira to Arsenal. What's your thoughts on him?
I think he's a really good player, actually. I think he, because I watched a lot of Uruguay's games, because obviously, like most Liverpool fans, I want the best for Suarez. And I actually think he gave them a lot of balance in the midfield, in the sense that he links the defence to attack really, really well, is very athletic, very dynamic, and had an excellent season last year at Sampdoria. So I think it's a good signing for Arsenal. I think it's kind of the sort of the market they've got to shop in now, because they are not in the Champions League and they weren't close last year. So they've got to sign players who are willing to play in the Europa League with the expectation of getting back into the Champions League, and I think he fits that profile. But what is interesting is that it does mark the dawn of a new era at Arsenal. Like, you've got Jack Wilshere being told you won't play if you stay. Off he goes to West Ham, and then Torreira comes in. So I would say, from a Liverpool perspective, Arsenal are going to be more of a threat this year than they've probably been in the last 5.
Yeah, they're certainly trying to get a lot of business done. I'm not sure where I stand on Unai Emery coming in as their manager, by the way. I've kind of gone both ways on that. Sometimes I think to myself, yeah, well, he's a good established manager, plenty of experience in European competition, basically owned the Europa League with Sevilla, to be fair. And then he went to France, and look, he didn't get PSG to where they wanted in the Champions League, but I don't think any manager is going to be able to come in there and bring them to the promised land, because they just don't have enough competition week in, week out.
Yeah, I think the issue with PSG is that it's not a club in any way run for the right reasons. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, it's almost like they're like a trophy, or they're an aspiring trophy churning machine with no heart and no soul. And I think with that, it's going to take a very specific kind of manager to get the best out of that type of environment. And I think, I don't think his lack of success at PSG is a damning indictment on Emery. I just think, if anything, he was foolish for taking the job in the first place, because I think it's a no-win scenario. If you win domestically, you're still shit, and if you don't win the Champions League, then you're shit. So you're sort of in a perennial catch-22 situation. And I think with him, I do feel like it was a very Arsenal-like appointment, in the sense that they had the opportunity to be bold and do something different, go for Arteta, go for someone young, fresh, that could build a potential dynasty. But no, they've just gone for someone French that will may well do well, but it's a very safe choice, I think, for them.
Cash, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on again for a chat. I'm going to end this stream now because I want to do some technical stuff with Connor, but guys, I will be back on in the next couple of minutes, so bear with me. Thank you so much, Cash, for joining us again, and no doubt I will talk to you over the weekend for the Cop Council podcast. I think you're free for that one, but if you're not, look, sure, we'll talk about that in the WhatsApp group. Guys, as I said, I will be back in a few minutes, so don't go anywhere. This stream will be live again. Thank you so much for your patience, and up the motherfucking Reds.
Woo!